Americans are on evening time.
Right.
Hello, Paina. Nice to see you.
Hello, everybody.
Everything going well with your health now, Paina?
I'm due for another round of tests, so I don't know right now.
Best wishes for that.
Okay, but time for a test.
Okay, best wishes for that. And I see a note that Ajahn is ready now.
Yes. อาจารย์
สวัสดีค่ะ
How to hear you back, Ajahn?
สวัสดีค่ะ
Okay.
สวัสดีค่ะอาจารย์ค่ะ
Okay, shall we start then?
Yes, please.
Yes. Questions? Does anyone have some questions to start us off with?
Roti, would you like to start with the discussion that we were having about dukkha and all conditioned dharmas being, I said unsatisfactory because they're impermanent and not worth clinging to, but you disagreed with referring to rupas as being unsatisfactory. Would you like a little more, add a little more, and then Ajahn may add her comments too.
Yeah, I don't disagree that rupas are unsatisfactory. I disagree that unsatisfactoriness is a characteristic of the rupa itself. I mean the experiencing of the rupas, it's unsatisfactory, but the rupa itself cannot be unsatisfactory. That's my point.
No, it can be.
Go on.
Did you say go on?
Paina, she made a little comment there.
Oh,
What it means when we refer to any conditioned reality, any nama or any rupa as being dukkha or unsatisfactory, it means because it, whatever nama, whatever rupa it is, arises and falls away. So it's not worth clinging and it's not in anyone's control. No one can make it last even an instant.
I cannot hear. Somebody has some Indian mantras.
Someone has a background noise on. So whatever arises and falls away is unsatisfactory in the sense that it cannot be made to stay. So even pleasant feeling, even panya, whatever it is.
Sorry, Sarah, I couldn't hear you right now because there was some very loud music. Somebody didn't turn off their microphone. But now it's okay, but I didn't hear what you were saying all this time.
And everyone mute if they're not speaking, is what Roti is saying. So whatever arises and falls away is unsatisfactory, dukkha, because it cannot be made to last even an instant. And it's anatta, not in anyone's control. So even the visible object is not worth clinging to at all because it falls away immediately. So this is what is meant by the unsatisfactoriness of whatever is conditioned.
Yeah, but again, that characteristic is not part of the rupa. That's what we experience, but it's not part of the rupa.
Rupa itself, which is anicca and impermanent, is also dukkha, which is what we refer to as unsatisfactory because it is impermanent. So this is the characteristic of every conditioned reality, regardless of whether there's any experience of it, regardless of whether there's ignorance or understanding. Even the rupas of the Buddha's body, each one is dukkha.
But how can, for example, visible object in itself be unsatisfactory?
Because that visible object cannot be made to last. Its nature is changing and falling away completely, and it is meant dukkha or.
Hoy, la verdad es que no tengo ni idea de qué hacer. Hoy es un domingo muy tranquilo.
Can everyone else mute because there's still some background noise somewhere?
Yeah.
The Ajahn having some technical problems because we can't hear you at all, Ajahn. So I just mentioned we can't hear anything if you're trying to speak.
I think probably you're confusing dukkha, sankhara dukkha with dukkha lakkhana, because the definition of sankhara dukkha is that things are that even pleasant objects are unsatisfactory.
And this is the lakkhana, this is the characteristic of every conditioned reality, that it is dukkha, it is unsatisfactory. This is what is meant by the characteristic, because each conditioned reality doesn't stay for a moment and is not in anyone's control. That's why.
But unsatisfactoriness is a mental phenomena.
No, here it's referring to the nature, the lakkhana of every conditioned reality. It's not the same as I feel unsatisfactory or I feel dissatisfied. It's not that at all. It's the nature of that which cannot stay, is not worth clinging to. This is what is meant by.
Yeah, it's worth not clinging to, but the rupa itself, there's no the subject of clinging or not clinging does not exist in a rupa. So you cannot say that a characteristic of a rupa is that it's not worth clinging to. You don't have that characteristic in a rupa.
So it's nothing to do with whether it's clung to or not, but that of every rupa that arises and falls away, even every rupa in the forest out there that's not being experienced. Each rupa has the nature of being dukkha, of being unsatisfactory in the sense
of being dukkha, yes, because of change. It's the stress produced by change.
Because it's impermanent, it doesn't last at all. So that which doesn't last at all is unsatisfactory, and that's why it's not worth clinging to it.
Yeah, but well, okay. Well, we will just be repeating the same thing. But again, I don't think, I think unsatisfactory is something that has to be experienced. That does not exist in the rupa. That it's not known somewhere of, I don't know where.
Even the rupas of the Buddha's body, even whether or not they are experienced, each one is disintegrates and falls away and cannot stay.
Yeah, I understand that perfectly. Yeah.
That is just what is meant by unsatisfactory. I don't know if anyone else would like to add anything more.
Roti, can you give an example?
Well, for me, what we call dukkha in the case of in the case of rupa is the stress, the friction that is being produced all the time because the rupas are changing all the time. So there's this stress, which is produced by the constant change, which cannot be happiness at all because it's of the change. But that's one thing. But I could not say, I cannot see how the rupa itself can be unsatisfactory. I have not have the characteristic of being in itself of unsatisfactoriness. I don't see that. I cannot see that as a characteristic of rupa.
Are you saying then that unless the rupa is experienced, it doesn't have the characteristic of unsatisfactory?
But that's not in the rupa. When you experience it as unsatisfactory, or as something that is not worth clinging to, that's not the rupa itself. That's my experience. How can rupa have the characteristic of not being worth clinging to? It's impossible. I mean, it has the characteristic of impermanent, and it has the characteristic of having no substance, and the characteristic of being in a stress producing, but not unsatisfaction producing.
I guess I asked if the characteristics that you've given to it, the impermanent and the not having the substance, is that not unsatisfactory?
Yeah, that's unsatisfactory, but that's not a characteristic of the rupa.
As I understand it, that it's the characteristic of all dhammas, and therefore it would be the characteristic of rupas, as rupas are included.
Yeah, I'm putting the example of rupa just in this case because nama is more complicated. But of course, it's the same applies to nama. I just want to use the example of rupa because in that case it's clearer, because unsatisfaction is a mental phenomena. So it's if you talk about the rupa, then you can see clearly how unsatisfaction cannot be a part of the rupa or a characteristic of the rupa.
Back to you, Sarah.
And the nature of the path, the nature of the development of understanding is to understand. When you mentioned about not clinging, the nature of understanding is to understand that each conditioned reality is not worth clinging to because it falls away instantly. So that is the nature of each reality, that it's impermanent and it's not worthy of being an object of clinging at all. And that is because of its nature of being dukkha.
Because of its nature.
The word unsatisfactory, it doesn't matter what word, its nature, its characteristic is to be, it's dukkha. And therefore, because it changes and it's not worth clinging to for an instant.
Yeah, so things are not worth clinging to because of for three reasons. One, because they are impermanent. Two, because they have no substance. And three, because they produce stress. These are the three reasons why things are not worth clinging to, or because or the reason why they are unsatisfactory.
When you say they produce stress, for example, let's say the rupas of the Buddha's body, when you say they produce stress, what do you mean they produce stress?
Is the stress that is produced by constant change. There's no peace there. You cannot find any peace, any happiness there because of the continuous change.
Right. So there's nothing worthy, there's nothing that should be clung to, even we're talking about the rupas of the Buddha's body, because
I have no problems if it's the rupa or the meanest person in the world.
So this is why any conditioned reality at all, as Anne said, any conditioned reality has that nature of being dukkha. I wouldn't say
Yeah,
produce.
dukkha, like stress producing, has the nature of being.
Yes, it's not that the rupa cannot produce anything, because it's just a rupa, just that reality which can be experienced. So it can't produce anything, but the nature of the rupa itself.
Of being stressful.
Depending on how you, what you understand by that word. So the nature of any rupa, no matter the rupa that is
Oppressive. Oppressive can be another word.
disintegrates, it falls away. So this is why we say it's not satisfactory in any sense at all, regardless of any.
Yeah, but it's also not satisfactory because it's impermanent, and it's also not satisfactory because it has no substance.
Right.
Not
exactly.
only because of dukkha.
No, because of it's dukkha, it's unsatisfactory because it doesn't last, and because it's anatta, not in anyone's control at all. This is what is meant by the characteristic of dukkha, of whatever is conditioned. Immediately, it cannot be made to last at all. That's why it is dukkha, or we would say unsatisfactory. Are you there, Ajahn, now? No.
Okay, let's talk about dukkha. We don't talk about people and things at all. We just talk about the nature of what is real. What is real? Just a moment, please. Okay, now we don't talk about I or you or thing at all. We just talk about the nature of the absolute reality, no matter what. And as Dhamma is different, one can experience an object and the other cannot experience object at all. No one there at all. Just we are talking about nature, the truth of the nature of reality. That's why whatever arises, it has to be conditioned to arise, and whatever has arisen, it has to fall away instantly. So what's the benefit, or what's the use, or what the advantage of just arise and not be there anymore again in samsara? Never be the same at all, just only once in samsara. So what is the use of everything which is conditioned to arise and falls away? Otherwise, the idea of self is that which is the reality which can experience an object and then fall away. Whatever appears now, fall away instantly, unknown. That's why when there is that which can experience an object and we take it for I, it experiences that which is not permanent. And even the seeing is not permanent. Everything is not permanent at all. So what the use of arising and falling away of whatever is conditioned? See, otherwise there can be clinging to the idea, and that arises and falls away. No permanent tree or people and thing at all. That's why we talk in the absolute sense of the nature of all kinds of that which is conditioned, sankhara dhamma. See, all sankhara dhamma and dukkha. It does mean only unsatisfactory or whatever it is, but what is that? It's not that minimum unknown at all. That's why there cannot be the eradication of I or the permanent thing unless the moment of enlighten the truth of that which is there arises and falls away. And that is meant by the meaning of dukkha or sankhara dhamma. Sankhara dhamma only is not permanent, so it's dukkha. What's the use of just arise and falls away all the time, no matter what? That which experiences or that which cannot experience. Can that be understood? Otherwise, everything appears as so very permanent. thinking, seeing things around, see? But actually, it's just there only when it's there and then gone. Even when it's there, it arises and falls away unknown. So the world seems very satisfactory, see? But actually, nothing at all. So what's the benefit? What's the use of just arise and falls away instantly? Never the same. Like now. That's why to study the teachings of the Buddha is to understand what is there now. Otherwise, the Four Noble Truths has no meaning at all. Just talk about it. But it's not just talk about it. It is this moment of whatever is there, enlightened by the Buddha, the one who had accumulated lots of parami years and years ago. That's why people in the Tipankara Buddha were so very happy, pleasant to know that even they didn't experience the whatever is now as it is taught. But one day, no matter when, that can be known by developing parami little by little from moment to moment and see how long will it take to understand this moment as it is and not just only one reality in a day or other has to be eradicated to understand that there's no self and no one at all. Otherwise, it is I all the time. The feeling, Vedana Khanda, Sanya Khanda, Sankhara Khanda, Vijnana Khanda. That's why if anyone is not directly experienced as it is, Lopa and ignorance is there. So it's quite a long way. So now we know that we are talking about that which is now appearing to understand the truth. It's not there now. Again and again, only just very short moment. So what's the use? What's the benefit of just arise to see and hear and then gone? No matter it, there is memory at moment of seeing, but then it's gone completely, never to return. And from understanding this point, one begins to understand the virtues of the Buddha so great. Otherwise, no one think about this moment at all. But actually, the truth is now, only now, in a moment, arising and falling away. That's the meaning of dukkha, ariya satya. Not only rupa, not only nama, not only one rupa or nama, all conditioned realities just arise and falls away instantly. Is it not dukkha? No one can control because actually there's no one in a moment, just one moment. There are different realities from moment to moment all the time. Otherwise, we think a lot about the word and the explanation, but what about this moment? It's there, not direct experienced yet, because panya is not enough. But from hearing again and again about this truth, it will bring right awareness to understand whatever is there as anatta. Or the words of the teaching must bring about the understanding of no one, no I, no thing, clearly and clearly, little by little. Is there still a question about the Ariya Satya, the first dukkha? Now, this moment is there. No matter what, the seeing, the thinking, the feeling, the memory, or whatever. Otherwise, it will lead to more doubt about this word or that word. It is useless as long as it's not the moment of beginning to understand what is now, that which is seen as just that. No thing in it, no bird, no tree, no bed, no chair. See? And it, which is experienced no more, just very shortly, And that's the meaning of all Dhamma, all conditioned Dhammas are anatta. It has to lead to the understanding of this moment as what is there. As Buddha taught, seeing is conditioned. It arises as see and following, nothing in it, nothing in that which is seen, all gone completely from moment to moment. So very rapidly, unknown from life to life, until hearing the word about the truth of whatever appears. Not there anymore, never. So one understands the dukkha at this moment when it's time, not permanent, but without the understanding of that which is there as nama or rupa. There cannot be the moment of directly experiencing the arising and falling away, what it appears as so permanent. Otherwise, it will not lead to detachment, letting go of ignorance and attachment to wanting to understand whatever is heard, but not now. But whatever is heard now, when it's the object of carefully thinking, considering, it will bring more and more understanding. Anatta, not trying to do anything. Just know that it's there, but the panya is not enough. That's why listen more to the truth. Nothing is permanent at all. Even right now, see. Otherwise, it will condition the moment of clinging as before, as usual. But no one can stop the arising of attachment and ignorance because they are conditioned by many, many moments in the past, years and years ago. That's why even that has to be known by directly awareness with panya, which hears now about what is there, little by little. Is now the Ariya Satya? Not yet. It is Satya, but not Ariya yet, because it has to be the highly developed panya, which bring more and more understanding to be Ariya Satya. Nothing is truer, more truth than this, the absolute. And at this moment, thinking about that which is seen, is that panya or avijja. See, different from moment when there is no thinking about that at all. But after hearing the truth of this moment, it depends on conditions. When will it bring about or condition the moment of direct awareness of that which is now appearing, little by little. And it has to be known all day, at any time, with the understanding of anatta, not me, but it's the moment of conditioned direct awareness to understand that which is now appearing. So it's quite a long way, because when it's the idea of self, you try hard to understand it. But when it's anatta, even trying is conditioned. Whatever is there is conditioned by many, many different conditions. That's why Buddha taught for 45 years to understand that which appears with conditions, many, many conditions, to bring about the understanding of this moment by condition. That's why Cetana, attention, is not one of the Eightfold Path at all. At all. And Panya has to understand Cetana, intention, trying very hard to do something in order to experience it, which is not right at all, because that's done by the idea of self. It's still me. So it brings more and more me, ourself, instead of right understanding. So Khanti Barami is needed with Viriya Barami and Satya Barami and Adidana Barami right now, little by little, when there is understanding only. But when there's no understanding, it cannot be Barami, because not understanding will lead to not understanding only. Is there Sankaradhamma now? What is that? It's there now, gone very rapidly. That's why it takes quite a long, long time to develop the understanding of no me, no self, no thing at all. And we just use the word anatta, anattaness. Understand the meaning of it, but what about this moment? What is anatta? It's there all the time, unknown. And until Suttamaya Panya develops with Chintamaya Panya, and this is Bhavanamaya Panya, with understanding only. Please, someone is going to say something.
May I ask a different question?
Please.
Okay. Last week, I don't know when, sometime recently, we were discussing touching, and touching as occurring so much during the day, but it doesn't appear always. You know, when we take notice of it, we say it appears, although it is arising and falling away throughout the day, interspersed with other realities. During sleep, when I understand deep sleep is bhavanga jittas, there may be dreaming, in which case it's dreaming. It's from memory. It does not involve seeing or hearing at the time. But touching, it seems that all the time during sleep, deep sleep, there is contact, hardness or softness, or heat or cold, and we don't notice it. But is Patawi Dhatu arising and falling away during sleep, interrupting the bhavanga jittas?
Let's talk about one reality or one moment at a time, please. Sleeping, okay. Deep sleep, or what?
Let's talk about deep sleep.
Okay, what is there? What appears?
Nothing.
So how can there be the understanding of whatever is there, touching and feeling and so on?
During deep sleep, there cannot be.
So it means that there can be the moment of studying, beginning to understand that which appears only. No selection, no choice.
Yes.
To that and disappear as touching. See? And is that not lopa? Is there to be known, to be eliminated and eradicated at the end?
It's lopa wanting to know. Yeah.
All the time, because it does not appear. So there can be understanding of that which is now appearing, no matter you call it sleep, deep sleep, not sleep at all, whatever is there, only when it appears. But the point is that no understanding of that before. So how can there be the understanding of such and such? Even right now, there must be phassa, contact, there must be feeling, there must be sanya, but Only that which appear can be the object of understanding. With sati, without sati, no akusala moment can arise at all.
Right.
We're
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
understand if no one knows self, just talking about different realities by conditions, nothing there. As tree and people and thing, or I am thinking.
So, during deep sleep, then, nothing appears.
See, but Buddha knew what's there, while the other not understanding that moment at all as something there, the citta arises and falls away, performing the bhavanka kitta to continue to be this person as long as karma as conditioned to condition the bhavanka, not the death moment yet.
Right. So during deep sleep, then, certainly touching or tangible object does not appear.
Never
guess.
at all. Otherwise, it cannot be bhavanka citta because it has to appear through sense door and mind door, 6 doorways.
Right. I guess my question is probably an intellectual level that doesn't have a lot to, but is it arising and falling away?
You cannot change the characteristic of citta or anything which are dhammas at all the adhammas. That's why the understanding of what is dhamma. See, no one there at all. But that which is the nature which arises and experience, and that which arises, the nature of it is cannot experience. No matter what, it has to be one of the two all the time. So as one hasn't come to the moment of death yet, there must be condition for citta, the karma produce it to continue on forming bhavanka. No seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking at all. It seems there's nothing, who knows? But as soon as one wakes up, one knows that that is sleep, bhavanka. So we have to understand what's meant by patisantichitta, not bhavanka, conditioned by karma. But to be only one moment is not enough to be the result of a karma. Even karma is so very weak, but it conditioned more than just one moment. And whatever arises falls away instantly. So no more patisantichitta in this life at all, only one moment. And after that, the patisantichitta has the anantara pajya to condition the next citta to arise instantly by natti pajya, not there. Not even the upata, titi, and panka, they have to fall away so that it can condition the other moment to arise instantly. And bhavanka is conditioned by the same karma as patisantichitta, but it's not the moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. No doorway to experience any object yet. That's why we call deep sleep. Nothing appears. But as soon as one wakes up, it's different from the moment when it is deep sleep. That's why one takes it for deep sleep and the moment of wake up. See, no one there. But thinking, think as soon as it's not the experiencing through the 5 doorways, but it's there. What understand, what knows that it's wake up, the moment of waking up. See, it is citta. And actually, there can be the understanding of that moment of citta as the experiencing, beginning to be something through mind and the idea of very deep clinging to that moment is I wake up. See,
Yes.
all there in a moment, so very fast from moment to moment. And then I see and then I hear, while the Bhavanga must be in between. Each story.
I think, Andrew,
Now, no one, only different citta arising and falling away in succession so very rapidly. That's why only that which is experienced can be the object of understanding, considering.
Thank you.
and I think there are two different topics in your questions, because with regard to the Bhavanga Chittas in deep sleep, as Ajahn has said, it's just one Bhavanga Chitta after another, experiencing not nothing, but its unknown object, not interrupted by sensed or experiences, or whilst dreaming, different chittas arising in the mind or experience. The concept also not interrupted by sensed or processes unless there's momentary awakening. But your question about patawi dhatu, hardness. So regardless of whether there's any experiencing of hardness or not, the patawi dhatu arises in every group, every kalapa of rupas. So even whilst in deep sleep or even out there in the forest, every group of rupas arises and falls away with patawi dhatu as one of the primary rupas in each group. But that patawi dhatu is only experienced when there is the sensed or process
Yes.
touching and the other chittas in that sensed or process. So in deep sleep, countless kalapas with patawi dhatu that make up the so-called body arising and falling away all the time, or making up the bedclothes or the bed, arising and falling away, but no experience. So it's only when awake, like
Okay.
up in the morning, that there is the experiencing of that patawi dhatu. Even at moments of in eye door consciousness or ear door consciousness, the patawi dhatu is there in each group of rupas. It's there in the group which has the visible object, which is impinged on eye sense, but at that moment, the patawi dhatu is not experienced. So when sound is experienced, patawi dhatu is there, conditioning that sound to be the way it is, loud or soft, but only the sound is heard in the ear door process. So it's there in each group, but it's only experienced when there is the body door consciousness at those moments, and it's only touched at that moment of bodily experience, even though it's arising and falling away all the time.
And so to generalize about the sensed or objects, or should I say sensed or rupas, during deep sleep, when there's condition for deep sleep, there may be, for example, sound in the room in the conventional sense, but no hearing. There's no conditions for hearing consciousness to arise and take this object. So likewise, in deep sleep, there is, in the conventional sense, there is contact between the body and the bed, we'll say, but there's no conditions for body consciousness to arise and experience the hardness or softness through the body door. So not only do they not appear, they are not experienced at those moments. So the consciousness, what is the rupas may be arising, but what is not arising is the consciousness to experience those rupas.
Okay, I see.
No conditions for the sense or consciousness to arise. Experience the sound that's in the room or the light that's been turned on and anything like that in deep sleep.
Thank you. Thank you. That's useful.
The Bhavanga chittas don't arise through any sensed or process of chittas. So no sense objects can be experienced at moments of Bhavanga.
Thank you. Thank you both, Ajahn and Sarah and Jonathan.
Like even now, in between the idol process and the mindful process, there are Bhavanga Chittas arising. And even when the Bhavanga Chittas arise now, even whilst awake, the object experienced is the same unknown object, and no sound heard, no visible object seen, no hardness touched at those moments either.
Thank you.
Of deep sleep, is there any chitta?
Yes.
What function is that chitta?
It's Bhavanga Citta.
Okay, you call it Bhavanga chitta, but it experiences an object, right?
Yes.
What is the object of Bhavanga?
Unknown to us, but
What
it's the same object as the object of the citta before death.
Okay, it doesn't matter at all, but there must be chitta with aramana,
Yes.
no
Yes.
matter when.
Yes.
And when it performs a function of Bhavanga, it experiences its object, right?
Yes.
And what is the object of Bhavanga? The unknown,
Unknown. Yes. Unknown.
right? And what phassa, contact then, at moment of Bhavanga?
There would be pasa. Yes.
And what is the object of phassa at moment of Bhavanga?
Unknown.
Okay, so Bhavanga contact the unknown object all the time when it's there, when Bhavanga keeps on arising and falling away, right?
Yes.
So we can understand that when we talk about Bhavanga, it's the moment when Phassa contact the object of Bhavanga only, right?
Yes.
And we talk about seeing is not Bhavanga, so it experiences and contact that object which is seen, right?
Yes.
That's why whatever citta is there has that certain object because of phassa, contact that object. Even at moment of Bhavanga, phassa contacts that object, which is the object of Bhavanga only,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
This is why we just learn about one word or one reality at a time. Nobody can change the aramana of Bhavanga to be known through any of the six Dhamma at all, right?
Yes.
That is what we heard, Tawara Vimutti, without Tawara, but it experiences. So there are three cittas which experience object without the object of the sixth Dhamma. See? And that is the object of Patisanti and Bhavanga and Tutti, only there. It contact the object of it, the same object. So the Bhavanga Citta contacts, the Phassa contacts the same object of the Patisanti Citta, see, unknown object.
Yes.
And this moment is the same object as Patisanti and Bhavanga. So the three kinds of functions of Citta, Patisanti, Bhavanga, Citta, have the same object
Yeah.
all through the life. No other object at all. But at moment of seeing, it's not Bhavanga anymore because the seeing is conditioned by many conditions, even karma, previous karma as well. So no need to talk about the conditions as long as not understanding the true nature of the characteristic of nama and rupa.
Mhm.
So we have to be precise to understand each citta with cetasikas, share the same object, experiences together the same object as citta experiences, same object. See, so how many cetasikas arise with bhavanga? Many cetasikas, including phassa and vedana and sanya and so on, depending on what type of citta is there as bhavanga. Can bhavanga see or experience any object?
No.
Can phassa, which arises with bhavanga, experience other objects?
No.
See, no change at all. To be certain that actually each citta has to be as it is, unknown. That's why Buddha enlightened the truth of all dhammas thoroughly, precisely, more than the others at all. Because no one can experience the phassa which arises with the bhavanga. See? So in the beginning, those distinction of any citta and cetasikas which arise together, but the characteristic which experiences can be known clearer and clearer and clearer. Because now even we talk about seeing as nama, it's not clear. Or we talk about that which is experiencing, that which is seen, it's not clear. It's only beginning of studying and understanding the truth of that which sees, but not clear as the direct awareness, to begin to study closer and more understanding of the characteristic of that which experiences. So we are talking about phassa at moment of panya, which experience clearer as vipassana jnana. It depends on what is there to be known, whatever is that which experiences.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we just talk about that which sees, that which experiences. It's not clear because of no direct awareness with understanding from intellectual understanding enough to understand that as it is, as what is meant by that which experiences. So what about talking about phassa? See? Or talking about vedana, or talking about sanya, not clear understanding of its nature as different ones at all, because no direct awareness of each one yet. That's why in order to understand what phassa, contact, it has to be understanding only phassa when it's there contacting the object. See, like now, when we are talking about seeing, we can talk about seeing by many terms, that which experiences, and dhatu, chakku vinyana dhatu, different from other vinyana dhatu, and so on. But it's not clear at moment of seeing yet, but it can condition understanding better with direct awareness, which is different from intellectual understanding of realities right now. See, that's why right understanding develops at moment of understanding more and more better and better of no one, only that which experiences. Even we talk about that which experiences hardness. See, at moment of hardness appearing, is there any understanding of that which experiences it? That's why it needs more considering, understanding what is heard in a day. Because in a day, who think about that which is now appearing, see, not at all. Just talk about it or about other story, other things, not now. That's why when we talk about now, it brings about the understanding of the intellectual understanding about that which is seen as nothing so short, only that which is seen, see. And before coming to have clear understanding of that as it is, as we talk about, it takes quite a long, long time with the understanding of anatta, no self, no thing, more and more and more and more and more. Otherwise, there cannot be conditions enough to condition even direct awareness of what is now appearing. That's why we have to understand the point of study, no matter about ajatana or tattoo or whatever. It is just to condition the moment of direct awareness by conditions, anothernness of any object which is there. See, no choice, cannot select whether it can be the dress or whatever. See, or which tattoo. That's why just learn to understand, to let go the idea of self with more understanding, little by little. So who knows better than one's own panya, which knows how many times in a day thinking about reality, which is now appearing, but thinking about words like phassa and so on, instead of the characteristic which experiences and that which is experienced. No name, no word about that which is experienced, but the understanding begins to understand the difference between that which experience with many, many cetasikas. See, the phassa, the vedana, the sanya, and so on are there unknown. That's why even phassa, whether it can be known or not, depending on conditions, but it has to be the understanding of the difference between that which experiences, which is quite different from that which cannot experience. Otherwise, panya cannot develop. But to understand about what Buddha taught about each reality can bring more and more detachment when it's right way to understand the words, not for oneself to know, but to understand that actually no one there at all, no thing there at all. They are sankhara dhamma, rising and falling away, which can be the holy, the Four Noble Truths. Thinking about Passat now?
Yes. Yeah. No pasa, no chitta.
There is Passat, there is Citta, unknown.
Yes. Without pasa, no citta. No
Really?
contact object.
Can it be no Passat, no Citta,
No.
even when it's deep sleep?
Yes. No. Because it would be pasa with the bhavanga citta.
We don't
Contacting.
call it anything, but whenever there is Citta, the experiencing, there must be the object, the aramana, depending on whether it is that which can experience, like Passa, Vedana, and Sanya, or not, or that which cannot experience at all. Does anyone try to be aware of Passa? It's wrong. See, but to understand that it is conditioned to arise and falls away instantly. So how can anyone try to know that? But to understand the characteristic that even it's now appearing, it's not the same one at all. Very shortly, even it seems like it's permanent.
Different pasa. Different rate.
Pardon? So Passa now,
Pasa now, yes, there is.
unknown. But from understanding the words of the Buddha, it needs or it has to be Passa as condition for Citta to
Yes.
experience the object.
Yes.
That's why understanding or learning to understand each reality, each word, until it's clearer and clearer by conditions. It will lead to more understanding if by conditions no one at all. Otherwise, they must be clinging all the time in life to this and that. That's why the point of studying the teachings of the Buddha is to let go avijja and wrong understanding of that which appears as permanent reality.
Are there any other questions, Pina or Tom and Bev? Where's Tom? He's there.
We're here. Ajahn, is my speaker on? Can you hear me? Ajahn, many, many years ago, you had said the cheetah is so dark. Can you please explain? I'm still, it's been at the back of my mind or something I think about and I don't know what it means.
Okay, only one reality can be seen. Citta cannot be seen. Sound cannot be seen. Even in darkness, citta arises and falls away. See, no one can see citta as seeing rupa right now at all, because it's only that which is there, like feeling, sorrow, pleasant. See, it does not, it cannot be seen, but it's there. So only one reality is only that which is seen, light or color or whatever you call it. But without word, it's clear. It's there, which can be seen. Sound can be heard, but it cannot be seen. Citta, cetasikas, and other rupas cannot be seen. So when we say that which cannot be seen, but it can be known or experienced or be aware of, is in darkness. See, so actually, everyone lives in darkness only the moment of seeing. Is that right? Everything is in darkness, only that which is seen. So the seeing is dark or in darkness. Hearing is in darkness. Hardness in darkness. Everything is in darkness. Only that which can be seen, no matter when. Long, long time ago and now or in the future, is only that which is now seen. And without seeing, that cannot appear to be that which can be seen. Are you now everyone in darkness when there's no seeing? Like the blind. See, no seeing. The world is so dark. But when we talk about the reality which can be known in darkness, it's darker. Like the blind.
Mhm.
Make his own videos on.
See, so the world appears as it's not known as it is at all. It appears like the light or the chair and walking and taking the car or bus or whatever. It seems like they are in light, but actually everyone is in darkness only the moment of seeing. So when reality appears as it is in darkness, when it's not that which is seen. So we live in the world of magic world because it doesn't appear as it is, but it seems like we live in light, not in darkness. But the truth is that actually, when Panya experiences the truth in darkness, only the moment when what is seen is there to be known. Very short, everything is so short. That's why we understand how it needs so very keen Panya, great Panya, to experience the truth, which is there from eons and eons ago in life, unknown all the time, until hearing the truth and consider that we live in what world? It seems like we live all day in light, but actually the truth is in darkness. Only that which is seen appear, only that is light. Can anyone change the truth? See, that's why it begins to understand how much ignorance is there from moment to moment, not understand the truth as it is at all. How can anyone imagine living in darkness all the time except at moment of seeing? So it means that seeing arises in a false way, and that which appears seems like permanent, but at the same time there is thinking, feeling, memory, and everything which is dark. So when the Panya develop the truth, the absolute truth, as it is so clear as Vipassana Jnana, the world of so many things is lost completely. Only the object of that very moment is there, as it is, in darkness, more than the idle process. That is clear to understand the difference between that which can be seen and seeing different from other doorways. The truth of the world is that. So we live in the untrue world because seeing seems all the time in a day, but actually it's only one moment of seeing through the idol. The other citta before and after cannot see, but it can experience the same object as seeing when it's sensor process. And the minder process, the first minder, which follows the sensor instantly. No one can separate it so very fast, like now. The difference between minder and sensor, the seeing door and the eye door and the minder are there in between all the time, from sensor to minder. Otherwise, there cannot be the remembrance of that which is seen as something. So we can begin to understand the virtues of the Buddha, how great to experience such so clearer than the other, anyone in the world. Or not only this world, other worlds as well. Is it true?
Thank you, Ajahn.
I think it's like Azita's question last week when she mentioned that it seems that what is seen lasts much longer than the idle process seems to last longer than the mindful process, or there seem to be more idle processes. But that's because there's no understanding that what is seen, the light that is seen, is just for a split instant and then gone completely. And because there's the thinking about what is seen, it seems to last. But that light is just so very brief. And then even the other cheaters in that process don't see that visible object or that light. And then there are countless mind or processes, no experiencing of light at all. So most of the time, almost all the day, actually chitta is arising in darkness, not experiencing any light. So the moments of light, of experiencing light, are just at the moments of seeing only. And the rest of the time, every other reality appears in darkness. Every other chitta experiences in darkness. So that's why it's said that chitta is so dark.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Ajahn.
And that's why even the visible object is dukkha, because what's the use of that reality that is light arising because it's gone instantly, and the rest of the time it's darkness. So whatever arises falls away and immediately. So in the deepest sense, no use at all. So unsatisfactory. So it's just because of the fantasy and the memory and the thinking that it seems that it's light all the time.
Ajahn, if I'm remembering correctly, you said something just a couple of minutes ago about without the sense door and the mind door, there can't be remembrance of what is seen as something. Can you talk about that for a bit, please?
Is there Sanya now?
Yes.
Who knows? It's gone completely.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Brahmacachita also have Sanya, right?
Yes.
Unknown like now, just like now. See?
Yes. So
We study one characteristic of the absolute reality at the time, it cannot be changed at all. Sanya arises with each citta, each moment. Whenever there is citta, there must be sanya and other cetasikas with it, but unknown. Even citta now unknown. Sanya, everything arising with it, unknown all the time. That's why we need the word of the Buddha to understand what is there, which is now unknown that it's there. But there are different cittas from time to time, different ones. So what moment can sanya be known or thought about? For example, right now, there is thinking. Without sanya, can it think about this, only this, which are the object of thinking right now? See,
no.
unknown. All leads to understanding the truth of absolute reality as not self. Otherwise, I remember, even at moment of waking up, see, nothing appeared yet, but remember, memory or sanya is there as I, lurking all the time. That's why when panya develops, if there's still no understanding of sanya, that cannot be sotapanna. Whatever is there as something or I must be completely eradicated. Otherwise, who's the Aryan, the enlightened person? See, that's why it takes time. It's not as easy as pie or as whatever one takes. Much longer than that. The more understanding it can see the depth, the subtlety of whatever is now appearing, even one. For example, that which is seen, as we say, ruparamana, is not the shape of the birds or the flowers or anything at all. It's only that which is seen very shortly, but how fast it is to appear as nimitta. See, it indicates that how fast the world moves on from moment to moment, unknown all the time. So what are there in only a moment of one citta cannot be known, like phassa and sanya. See, even now while talking or hearing, there must be sanya. But when you try to think about what you want to know, it's not there. So you say, I forgot. But actually, even that moment, Sanya marks it and remembers it, the difference between moment when one thinks that one forgot and moment when one thinks that I didn't forget. See, all adhamas are known in darkness all the time, quite unclear because they arise and fall away, and the truth of it is not known as different ones clearer yet. That's why even the short terms like appear well, see, it's different from different level of understanding. So when there is more understanding, it's like further and further, so far away that it's like what is there under the ocean, see, unknown. And panya leads to understand little by little, deep down. So it's so very deep. That's why the more understanding Dhamma is so very deep, so very profound, so very subtle, that it takes time for become not clinging at all of that which appears as something, michatiti. See, it can be known as wrong understanding, or it's not known as asava. So very fast, very quick to is to be there at moment of seeing, hearing. How many moments of the of citta? See, so we just study to understand that which is hidden, unknown in darkness, until light, the panya, is enough to understand it from stage to stage, which is different levels of panya vipassana. No direct experiencing of the arising and falling away at all. It has to be just there, which is so unexpectedly. No one can think about it at all. No matter we are talking about darkness and light now, it's not when it appears as it is. The world is lost completely. Only that which appears to Panya, only that moment, to know that all in darkness, only that which is seen is not that. So very little because of Panya, of the understanding the others are there. So all dark in their moment. So now when we talk about phassa, see, it's just understanding that it needs phassa so that citta has to experience that which phassa contact. It cannot arise alone without phassa to experience anything. But because of phassa, experience that, so it conditions citta to experience, the chief of experience that, while phassa just contact. And the other cetasikas arises and perform the function. This is to condition the understanding of no self, no one, and no world at all. No permanent world like now, see, only so short, which arises and falls away instantly, but without that level of panya, it cannot be object of understanding. The understanding develops little by little from moment to moment until one knows that it's beyond expectation, not in anyone's control at all. Just think about that which is now. Are there? Phassa is there. Sanya is there. Feeling is there. It depends on what is the object by another's, not by the self trying to have it as object.
Roti, Pina, Tom, any more questions?
No, I don't really have a question. I've been thinking about this issue of contact, and Ajahn just said clarify some things, especially in relation to non-contiguous objects of seeing and hearing. I've been puzzled by how that occurs, but it's phassa does not actually physically contact anything. It's so I don't really have a question about it. I just have been puzzled by the nature of contact, which would phassa, how it contacts the impingement of the object on the citta.
Is there phassa now?
There must be, but I don't know it.
Everyone cannot understand it when it does not appear as object. But from learning that the conditions of that very moment, phassa is ahara paccaya. It brings the other reality like citta and cetasika to experience that object. See? So now there's hearing. because of phassa contacting only just this sound, not the other sound at all. And when there is thinking, phassa is there. Ahara for citta and cetasikas to experience that object. So each cetasika has its own function and paccaya for the others to arise. Like phassa is ahara paccaya. It brings the other citta and the citta and cetasika to experience only that which it contacts. I don't know whether the word context is good, right, or perfect, but it's there. Like we contact something, but it's not the rupa, but it's the nama which contact. So whatever is now object, phassa is there, contact it. So citta arises with other cetasika to experience that object according to its function, each one. Citta experiences as the leader or the chief of just experience clearly, not understanding, but experience clearly, like the fake and the real one, see, can be known. Because citta is the chief of experiences, that characteristic as it is, but no understanding it as not me or not self. So each cetasika has its own function, like panya, the moment of understanding. Who can touch panya? Who can find out panya? Because panya arises and falls away instantly, everything. And the namas arise and falls away shorter than the rupa, quicker than rupa. That is because of the enlightenment of the Buddha. So he taught what he has enlightened for the others to begin to understand little by little until it can be object of enlightenment for those who have developed conditions enough to condition the moment of understanding different degrees and levels. Like now, the difference between the intellectual understanding and the direct awareness is different. See, but there must be phassa together with citta. And sanya is there, feeling is there as five khandhas. 50 cetasikas as sankhara khanda, including phassa. Can it be known? Even it's there, see? But without it, how can citta experience? Not just at will, or it like to experience this or that, but because of phassa, so it now experiences that which phassa context only. This is the understanding of anatthaness. No one can perform the function of phassa or vedana or sanya. They are conditioned by accumulations too. To like or dislike a certain thing, but phassa has to be there for citta and other cetasikas to experience that which is the object of it. No expectation to experience anything, even they are now. Arising and falling away in split seconds. So it's quite impossible, but it can be directly experienced by panya, the unknown panya, the unknown, no certain time for panya of this degree or that degree to arise. The anatthaness shows up little by little. There is more confidence because of the firm understanding of what is now as no self. Everything is gone in split seconds. So even what is there, arising and falling away all the time.
Heiner, I'm just wondering if your question is how can there be the experiencing of a non-contiguous object?
Yeah, I don't understand that, but it helps to think in terms of Pasa being a nama and it cannot have physical contact with anything. So there is a kind of impingement or contact or coincidence of two mental things that lead to experience. That begins to make some sense in my mind, but I find it hard to get my mind around non-contiguous. And that's probably because the term contact is so associated with physical that it makes me think of physical. And I can't get this thought out of my head.
You don't have any problem with how a non-contiguous object can impinge on the sense door?
I do have.
You have.
It is. Yeah. Because contact itself is such a physical term. So the non-contiguous objects in the sense door process are a visible object and sound, according to the Visuddhimagga. So, and those are things that we associate with the physical environment. So it's very difficult to understand how it's experienced.
So maybe Ajahn can say a few words on how a non-contiguous object can impinge on the sense door.
Yes. I don't know if I'm sure she knows or has something to say. Whether this is the time, I don't know.
Okay. What about sanya? Is it the same or different?
Well, that's where I'm trying to focus on the mental objects, because that helps me understand the non-contiguous physical object. Or I think of sound and I think of visible object as physical.
Okay. The commentary just talk about Passa as the two hands just come together. And that is Passa, coming together. When it's there, different from when it comes together. This is the right hand and this is the left hand. They come together and that is Passa.
Yes, that's a kind of simile for it, but I can't get beyond that to the Passa, contact, the non-contiguous.
The rupa, right? But it's not easy to understand the nama at all, because it cannot be like the.
I keep thinking in physical terms and understand.
But
mental Passa is difficult.
Yeah, we can understand the physical, right, better than the understanding of the nama.
That's right.
So that's why Passa included in nama, like other thing, like sanya, remembering. See, like now, can it be there? It remembers, and remember is with every citta. So one can understand, remember as I, but no thought about Passa, but it needs Passa for every citta to experience that object. See, it needs Passa to experience just that object, not the other object. It's as much as we can think about it. It's there. Otherwise, citta experience whatever by itself, but actually it's impossible. Citta needs Passa to be conditioned for experiences a certain object, which is there by Passa, contact, or we think that is not the right word, all right, but try to understand the nama, which is there, which brings that citta and cittasika to experience that object, which it Passa. If you don't use contact or impinge, see, because it's nama, very difficult to understand the difference between namas and namas, see, but it's there. Citta cannot just experience any object at random at all. But because of Passa, it has to experience only that. Now it experienced like now, just now, see? it experienced that certain object because of phassa.
It also seems that as phassa is a nama and the object is a paramatta dhamma, they must arise at exactly the same time. There's a coincidence of, in order to fit together.
That means that phassa is there, and or citta and cetasika is far away from it. It's there.
No. The others are there too.
That's why we need to understand reality as a self, because they are different. Phassa cannot be sanya, cannot be vitaka, cannot be like, see. But why it experiences a certain object? Because of phassa is there. Phassa is there, phassa. And then citta and cetasika just arise to experience the object which phassa.
And if it, for example, it's the visible object that's already impinged on the eye sense, that visible object has arisen already, and the seeing, which arises together with the phassa and other cetasikas together, experiences that visible object that's already impinged. But the phassa leads that citta to experience it. Without the phassa, the citta cannot see that visible object. I think it's a bit like, for example, Vedana. We might conventionally think of feeling something by way of touching, and we read about Vedana tasting the object. But the Vedana, which arises with that moment of seeing or the moment of thinking now, it just experiences the object in a pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral way at the moment of seeing it in a neutral way. So it's like the phassa, they're just mental factors that arise together and experience the object. No physical contact at all, or no feeling like we're used to thinking of it. As you say, I think it's just the word one think here is contact.
Yes, exactly. It's just the word, and it's just the, as I said, the heavy, well, impression, or what do you call the baggage of physical contact that kind of gets in the way.
And there's also a lot that's written about phassa that's completely wrong, referring to with the idea of physical contact, not understanding phassa as a cetasika, a mental factor, nothing to do with the physical contact we associate with the word. Like at the moment of thinking now, thinking about a concept, no reality at that moment that's thought about, but the thinking needs phassa to experience that concept, that idea. Clearly no physical contact at all. But without the phassa arising, that the thinking cannot experience the idea, this moment. So this is, I think it's the same problem that Roti had before with referring to rupas or realities as being unsatisfactory or useless. One has, whatever term we use, there are different connotations, and that's why it has to come back to understanding the different dharmas.
So, Paina, just to understand better, do you have a problem with or difficulty with the notion of consciousness experiencing a rupa? Or is it just the role of phassa in particular in that experiencing?
Well, I haven't really thought about the three sense door objects that are physical and are considered contiguous. I haven't thought about that, and I didn't have much of a problem with that because they have a physical contact element involved. So it was primarily the non-contiguous object and the notion of contact as a mental action or a mental phenomenon.
Well, it's part and parcel of the experiencing, isn't it? So
yes. And I don't really have a problem with citta having as an object an idea of mati. So it's the problem is the Nama-dhammas, understanding those as Paramatta Dhamma, I suppose.
So
Hard to understand.
but they have a characteristic.
Theoretically, it's not a problem. It's just the reality of it.
If you think too much about it, it's a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And even at the moment of touching, like Anne was mentioning before, or where there is that object that is impinged, that close object, but even at that at the moment of touching, the phassa that arises is a mental factor. So it's not physically touching.
Yes, that I know. Yes, I realize that.
So it seems like it's clearer then than when it's a moment of seeing, but actually it's just the same characteristic.
Actually, experience tells us that their consciousness does experience these realities, the visible and the audible object. I think it's the label of non-contiguous that raises the thinking problem, but experience in life tells us.
It's not the label, because I know that the color doesn't actually, it's easy for me to imagine that the color doesn't actually enter my eye and touch the eye door. But when you talk about sound, even the Visuddhimagga says that one of the conditions for hearing sound is the space in the ear, as though this physical wave of sound is going into the ear. So I have to get rid of those ideas to come to the reality of
we can accept
experiencing.
We can accept the reality without necessarily having to work out in minute detail the how.
Yes, we can, but
the important thing is to understand the true nature of the reality rather than to work out exactly how it all happens, because that kind of information is not
yes
to development of understanding and eradication of ignorance and wrong view.
Right.
Experience anything by itself?
Sorry?
Do you think that citta can experience anything by itself?
Citta experiences by conditions with jetasikas.
Yes, and one jetasika is phassa.
Yeah.
So citta and other.
The different jetasikas all perform a function which is necessary for experience.
In order to understand that whatever arises cannot arise by itself, but by conditions. So citta experiences a certain object, why not the other? Because of phassa is there.
Yeah.
And phassa is, that's why phassa is aharapaccaya, brings the other cetasikas to experience the same object that it experiences.
Okay.
We've been talking about phassa experiencing, for instance, rupas in this case, when we talk about visible object or the hearing. But citta also experiences concepts and ideas. So therefore, phassa experiences concepts and ideas.
Can phassa arise alone without vitakka?
I'm sorry, can you ask that question again, please?
Can phassa arise alone without vitakka?
Phassa without vitakka?
No.
It depends.
It does. The two seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. See, by conditions, all by conditions, but the
Yeah.
other jittas need phassa.
Yes.
If
Oh, I
needs
see.
Vitaka, the others. Yeah.
The others all need vitaka as well.
but
Pasa.
phassa has to arise with all jittas.
Yes.
Vipaka does not arise with all, but most of jittas.
And it doesn't arise with the sense consciousness.
So phassa has to arise with any moment of citta, each citta, but vitaka can arise with other cittas except the 10 cittas. See,
Okay.
by conditions, all by conditions. But phassa has to arise with each citta, like sanya and vedana and other cetasikas and other cetasikas. See, by conditions. That's why Buddha taught about different conditions. And phassa is there as ahara pajaya, not other pajaya, because it brings citta and cetasika to that certain object which it phassa. Because Pali term might be clearer,
Mhm.
because usually people think about touching as phassa, not understanding about nama.
Right. They understand contact as touching. That's right, a physical contact.
But as citta cannot arise alone by itself at random, it has to experience the object which phassa
Mhm.
only. See, even right now, people have the same different thinking, and people have different thought right now, and even seeing a certain object must be different for each too, because one might see this and the other might see that. See, by phassa, not by anyone or thinking that I would experience this or that, not at will, not at random, but because of paccaya. It doesn't mean that phassa, this object, and the citta and cetasika arise to experience other objects. See, they have to arise together as sahajata paccaya, but different function, different characteristic of different reality, which arise together as different ones. Sometimes you ask people or someone near you, what do you hear? Do you hear this? They might say, I hear the other thing. See, by phassa.
Do you mean hear a different sound?
Yes, by phassa.
By pasa.
Yeah,
Not by gamma, or it's just the hearing itself that's
it
vipaka.
depends on whether citta is karma or not, because all cetasikas arise with citta at that very moment.
Yes.
By way of sahajata paccaya, when citta is vipaka, all cetasikas arise with it. Has to be by karma, condition
Okay.
those cetasikas to arise with that particular citta.
Right. So pasa then is a vipaka.
It can be kusala, akusala, vipaka, or kriya, because phassa arises with each citta.
And that's why one person might hear one sound and another hear a different sound.
It's even right now, seeing different things one at a time.
When it arises with seeing, it must be vipaka, passa, and depending on what passa contacts or experiences determines what seeing will see at that very moment. So the seeing and the passa are conditioned by karma, but the passa by being ahara paccaya, the food for the citta and other cetasikas at that moment, it leads or contacts an object for the citta and other cetasikas to experience. So each of those cetasikas arising of seeing, each of those vipaka cetasikas has its function, and that's the function of Phassa. The Vedana feels, the Ekagata focuses on one object, and so on. So they all have their function, and Phassa has the function of contacting or leading to that object for the seeing and the other Chaitasikas to experience at that moment. So nothing to do with
I'm sorry, Sarah.
nothing to do with physical contact, because it's the mental factor, Dhamma, that experiences at that moment with its function that's different from the function of Vedana or Manasikara or any of the other Chaitasikas.
So seeing and Phassa are both conditioned by the same Dhamma.
Must be, because they arise together, conditioned by that karma at that moment.
Oh, and they would have the same object, of course.
Same object, but
Oh.
the seeing just experiences that visible object, and each of those Chaitasikas arising with the seeing has its particular function.
Yeah.
Result of same karma, but each one with a different function, experiencing the same visible object.
Okay. So when there is a kusala vipaka, when an unpleasant object is experienced, it would be a kusala vipaka. And of course, it doesn't matter which object it is, does it? Because, well, whether it's visible object or tangible object, is the vipaka just related to, say, for instance, pleasant or unpleasant object, or is it specifically a visible object or a tangible object? I guess the answer there is by conditions.
So depending on whether it's kusala or akusala vipaka, the result of kusala or akusala karma will determine whether the object experience is inherently pleasant or unpleasant. So if it's the result of akusala karma, it must be the unpleasant or the undesirable object. And at that moment, no matter it's seeing, hearing, or which vipaka chitta arises, it experiences that object. And at that moment of arising, each of the chaitasikas arising with that vipaka chitta experiences exactly the same object, and each one performs its particular function. The Vedana feels it, the Ekagata Chaitasika focuses on it, the Phassa contacts it, and so on.
Okay, thank you.
And the other chittas in that sense store process also experience that same object. The two chittas after seeing or hearing are also vipaka chittas, also experience that same object, but they don't see it, and they need vitaka.
Yes.
Seeing and hearing don't need.
Okay, thank you. What have we got here?
I think that understanding more about the different realities and how they arise by conditions is the way to understand how Phassa or any other Chaitasika can experience the object, and how it's quite different from our conventional ideas of contact or feeling or focusing and so on. So I think that's why the details are helpful. And it just comes back to this very moment, this moment of experiencing. Impossible to experience anything, no matter sense object or concept or any object at all, without phassa contacting the object right now.
Yes, thank you. This helps. This is a good discussion, this topic.
Thanks to Paina for bringing it up.
Yes.
I'm sure
Other
it'll
people?
come up again.
I'm sorry. Somebody was about to speak. Other questions? Azita, you just appeared. I know you've been here all the time, but your picture just appeared again. Is that because you want something to say?
I want to go back to Roti's query about the unsatisfactoriness that we apply to all dhammas, all namas and rupas. And I thought he had a point in that isn't it unsatisfactory because of clinging? Maybe that was brought up, but look, for example, say the rupas on the moon or somewhere, they are impermanent, arising and falling. But would we call them unsatisfactory? Isn't it in relation to the Four Noble Truths? I'm also a bit curious as to why it's unsatisfactory. I understand dukkha, anicca, and anatta. I know that's applied to all dhammas, but unsatisfactory.
The point is that whatever arises and falls away is dukkha, because as Ajahn said, what's the use of visible object just arising, falling away, gone forever, once in samsara? Even a moment of panya in the deepest sense, what's the use? Because it's gone immediately. So this is what is meant by dukkha, or being unsatisfactory. It's like useless, really, in the deepest sense. And this is the meaning of dukkha. Whatever arises and gone immediately is useless or unsatisfactory. So even the rupas that we are out there on Mars, for example, each one arises and falls away, no matter it's experienced or not experienced. What's the use of it? Of any,
That's yes. What's the
one who has understood the deep understanding of the arising and falling away of what is conditioned, turns away, sees the uselessness, the unsatisfactoriness of whatever is conditioned. And that's why nibbana is the opposite of that which is conditioned and not worth clinging to, completely useless. So this is what is meant by it. So it all comes back to the nature of dhammas as being impermanent and not in anyone's control, anatta, regardless of whether it's experienced or not. It's the nature of any sankhara dhamma to be dukkha, to be quite useless or unsatisfactory in the deepest sense, gone, never to return. And this is the understanding that of namas and rupas now that leads to the deep, deep understanding of the rising and falling away, and leads to the seeing the danger, the worthlessness of whatever is conditioned in samsara. So the worthlessness, we could say, it's another word.
I like your word useless. I think I prefer that to unsatisfactory, because
So worthless.
satisfactory gives the impression, well, we want it to be satisfactory, but useless. I like useless. Thank you.
I want it to be worth a lot, but whatever arises and falls away in the deepest sense is of no use, no worth, not satisfactory in any way.
Yes, thank you. Great.
I think Ajahn made a really good point at the beginning that in the end, a bit like contact, phassa, it's not the term or the label, because we can be put off by one meaning, one word or other, but it has to come back to the understanding right now, the understanding that whatever arises now, the Vedana, the seeing, the hearing, even moments of kusala now, in the deepest sense, are of no great but worth or use because they've gone completely immediately. This clinging to what is completely gone. No lasting value of any kind. And this is the way that the understanding gradually leads to detachment or turning away from whatever is conditioned. Very gradually.
I think that's the point, that it's in relation to understanding. If they arise and fall away, without any understanding, we don't know it arises and falls away. So it's kind of in relation to developing the understanding, developing the Eightfold Path, that there's the beginning to see that it is really unsatisfactory or useless.
And as Ajahn stressed also, there has to be, from the very beginning, the understanding of what are the realities which experience the namas and what are the realities that don't experience. Otherwise, we think of the computer as unsatisfactory or one's mobile phone, but it's nothing like that. It's referring to this moment of seeing, this moment of hearing, life at this very moment in reality, because without that understanding, there can never be the developed understanding of the arising and falling away of seeing or hearing or reality. So it has to come back to understanding what is Dhamma now from the start, Dhamma as the Nata.
There's no clinging in Mars.
Thank you.
Say that.
There's no clinging in Mars.
Even though there's no clinging, no experiencing in Mars, each sound, is it of any use or not?
How can you talk about not worth clinging as a characteristic in Mars?
Whatever arises and falls away is of no use, so it's not worth clinging to. Like
clinging is a cetasika, and there are no cetasikas in Mars.
Who knows any people? Any haters experiencing those rupas? But
so
it's
you cannot say that the rupas existing in Mars have a characteristic of not worth clinging to.
It's the characteristic of all dhammas that they are impermanent, and
but not in Mars.
Even
Mars is the exception.
Realities are impermanent.
Why is it the exception, Roti?
Because in Mars there are no cetasikas.
You sure? Well, there are creatures, living beings, Jita, Cetasika and Rupas, but if there were human creatures.
Yeah, you don't have to be so literal.
Okay, I guess I'm not understanding your point.
There's a little bit of sarcasm in my comment.
Yes, okay.
But sarcasm that is pointing to the fact that if there's no cetasika, there can be no clinging or not clinging.
Right, no lopa. Is a cetasika.
So how can a rock in Mars have the characteristic of not being worth clinging to?
Roti, can I answer that? You think of the scientists on this earth trying to get to Mars, trying to get these bits of rocks. And even if they get them, they think it's a real rock, but in fact, it's just impermanent. Anicca and anatta.
Yeah, I can perfectly visualize the state of constant change in the rupas in Mars. Also the lack of substance, but not characteristic of unsatisfactoriness.
I think we're coming full circle here in terms of what we're discussing.
Where we started.
Maybe pick it up again next week. Our 2 hours are done now. Thank you, Ajahn. Thanks so much.
Ajahn, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.